Hi, I'm going to talk a little bit right now about long-term goals and short-term goals. So we know when we're setting goals that we need a long-term goal, and this is probably going to be anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks or longer away, but I like to keep it within weeks so that you can plan, okay, how many short-term goals do I need? I like to have a short-term goal for every week so that every week when your student comes to class, you know what you're going to be working on. And that's fine. You might think, well, wouldn't there be too much to cover for a short-term goal? If you think there is, then you just break it down into another week and you have a smaller segment, a smaller segment. Um, so for an example, let's consider a student who wants to study for the TOEFL exam. This might be a really common one that you'll see. The TOEFL exam is required for any international students who want to attend a college or university in the United States. It's a language proficiency exam to determine whether or not they will be able to keep up with the coursework in English. So we have a lot of students who like to study for the TOEFL exam. So what sort of short-term goals would we make? Obviously, the long-term goal would be get a good score on the TOEFL exam. The short-term goals require you to know a little bit about what it takes to get a good score. Sometimes you might have to do a little bit of research or a little bit of thinking. You can ask the coordinator for their opinion as well. So for the TOEFL exam, there's a reading section, writing, listening, and speaking. Since it's a standardized test as well, you need to learn basic test-taking techniques. Many students probably have not taken an exam like that, whereas those of us who have grown up in the United States have probably taken the ACT or the SAT. Some may have taken the MCAT or the GRE, the GMAT, all sorts of those standardized tests. We've been taking standardized tests for years. And we all know that there are strategies for doing well on those exams. So if a student wants to take the TOEFL exam, I might say, okay, do a practice exam first. Let's see where you're at. Let's see what's your strong point, what's your weaker point. They would do that on their own time and come to class and be like, this is how I did. You'd kind of go over it with them to see where they need to improve. A lot of practice tests will allow you to see like what type of skill it is that they're practicing. So maybe they do well generally on like a reading test, but maybe they really struggle with a particular type of passage. And so you'd want to focus more energy on that. So your short-term goals would start to look something like, okay, for the reading section, what do they need to do? Maybe we need to practice reading passages in this genre. We need to practice their summary skills. We need to practice finding the main idea. We need to practice vocabulary words. Identifying those smaller steps. And so each week you would focus on one of those small things for them to practice over and over again during the week. The listening skills might be, watch a video each day and summarize it, or talk about what you heard, listen to audio clips or news reports, and then they can do their practices during the week. So they can practice listening to native speakers who speak really fast, who speak in certain genres, who use certain vocabulary. And then for the test-taking portion of it, you might set goals like complete the test within the time limit, eliminate answers based on what you know, even if you're not sure of what the right answer is. So that would be a bigger goal that would probably span, most students will start a few months in advance. So that one will require a lot more breaking it down. So I would probably start in sections and be like, let's start with the reading section. And then let's make our goals for that section first, and make all your short-term goals for the reading section so that each week you have a tangible, observable behavior that you can see to know whether or not they've completed the goal. Those short-term goals will really set up the student to meet their long-term goals. If we just set a long-term goal, it's hard to say like, okay, yeah, I think we've been making progress, but by the end you're probably not making as much as you thought because you're not identifying what the sub-skills are that you need to succeed at a long-term goal. So you're really trying to identify a few major things. You're trying to identify what skills are required if I'm going to perform my long-term goal well, and do I need other skills to perform those skills? So you're trying to break it down into smaller and smaller skills until you say, okay, this is a manageable chunk of study for 1 week, and then we'll move on to the next thing the next week. So always keep in mind we need to be setting short-term goals along with the long-term goals. And you can add as many short-term goals as you need, but ideally I like to keep them about 1 week.